Good evening, everyone. Rather
Hi.
interesting Saturday. This is Clay, joined by the E Train on a
Hi.
rather uh, auspicious afternoon or evening.
Mhm.
Had several people, contact and comment about what's going on in the Middle East. Iran has launched an attack against Israel. And so that is obviously a huge focus of attention right now. Um, thoughts and prayers are out. Uh, for those, both in Israel and in Iran who, are innocents that may be caught up in all of this. It's it is a fascinating moment
It's a
right now.
that's
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the words. Iran has launched its attack. Probably estimates I've seen so far are up to 500 drones, plus they've launched missiles.
okay,
They
RAF
just
jets are
they ju
involved now.
Yeah, they just released a message through their UN envoy that their attack is now, quote unquote, concluded. It's like almost they say, we've launched 500 drones and missiles and now we're done. So, unless Israel does something else stupid, like they can launch 500 drones and missiles and have no further consequences. I doubt that's going to be the case. I seriously doubt that's going to be the case. So,
Yeah, it's getting bad. Hello,
yeah.
Jane.
Hello, Jane. Hello,
Hello,
Melissa. Good
Melissa.
to see y'all tonight.
Yeah, it's this was not great news
Yeah, so
today.
far the drones are just starting to reach Israel. They've had alerts issued for like the Negev, the Dead Sea area, even Jerusalem, which I find it a little bit hard to conceive that Iran would attack or launch against Jerusalem because that is also a Muslim holy site. Um, but like I say, fascinating times. This is going to be an interesting weekend. Uh, Melissa, I've not seen updates on
This week.
uh, this week. What's going on? Most interesting thing generally is that Iran has launched an attack against Israel. A very large missile and drone attack. Um, so far, to my knowledge, Israel has not retaliated. They're focused on getting their planes up and having Iron Dome and intercepting the incoming missiles. So I have not seen anything about an Israeli response so far. That probably will happen in short order. And who paid for those missiles and drones?
That would be the United States of America.
Yeah,
Yay.
I mean, on two different occasions, we have given them billions in cash, untraceable cash. I don't know why. If we owed them money and felt like, the administration felt like they ought to be paid, wired electronically, we can track it. They can't disperse it, that easily. Cash is untraceable. Giving them
It's
billion pallets, absolute pallets full of cash.
it's fungible. You can't they can do whatever they want to with it and you can't.
You have no idea.
No.
And what's the major, probably the world's largest sponsor of terrorism going to do with cash? I can only guess. Secondly, we've, removed the sanctions against their open selling of oil, and they have the past few years raked in billions off of that. So, in terms of figuring out where the money has come from, there's really
Um
not a whole lot of doubt.
I think we are the biggest funder of terrorism right now in the world.
Probably, I couldn't argue that. And we're funding both sides. It's it's just fascinating. I don't have the words really to describe it. Hey, Carson, how you, sir?
Yep.
Got to go to Costco, so I'll be I'll just go affect for a bit.
What happened to the Iron Dome?
So far as I know, there haven't been anything to land in Israel. The Israeli Air Force, the American, some of the planes on the carriers, the RAF based in Cyprus,
Mhm.
are all involved in trying to shoot down some of the drones, intercept some of the missiles. So far, OSNet Defender is reporting multiple interceptions over northeastern Israel. So far, I haven't seen anything about hits in any of the major cities or populated areas. Um, I'll change that. There was just a post. Explosions now heard. Oh well, over the city of Haifa in northwestern Israel. So it's over this. They're still being intercepted. Um,
Thank you, Melissa. We need your translation. Carson away from keyboard for a bit.
I was sitting there
Clay
thinking
was
of
still like, "What
numerous
is she talking
different combinations
about?"
there. Yeah. Um,
It takes us a minute.
a as far as about a minute ago, the Israeli War Cabinet approved a military response, so that probably will be initiated before long. This is not over. Iran's saying, "We launched, we did our thing, we're done." Yeah. Nope.
Carson, I agree. It was sort of a tongue in cheek comment. I know. It's we are the biggest funder of terrorism, sadly.
Yeah.
And Melissa, I learned that on the Big Bang Theory episode. Sheldon. I did want to say, well, I guess we have people here. Um, this channel has given me the opportunity to speak to a lot of women and a few men that I normally would not have had the opportunity to talk to. Um, I talk to some of you on the phone, I text you, we have conversations. I've gained a whole lot of really good friends who have lot of really good information. I know a lot of us conservatives are a little bit wary to speak to people about how we really think and feel. And I've gotten, feedback there from, a lot of people just saying, I'm worried about this. This is a thing. And we're a safe space for whatever side you're on. But it's just, I feel truly blessed to have the opportunity to have made friends with you guys and talk to you and have, conversations and a friendship with you. It is just that there are no words to describe my gratefulness for you guys.
Yeah, we do, I refer to this channel as a family, and I mean that quite earnestly. We really have been able to come to know, but love, some of you guys, and appreciate greatly your encouragement, your suggestions, your input, your friendship, your fellowship.
Mhm.
So we get more out of this channel than we put into it.
I mean, I wouldn't go
Now,
that far. I mean, okay. We put a lot into this. Look behind you, Clay.
oh yeah, sorry, I was watching something. Ta-da! Need to introduce the M, the uh the logo. This was, and I'll give credit where credit is due. This was Ellen's creativity.
Brainchild.
Yeah, she thought of it. She did a lot of the work on it.
Well, I
Uh,
thought we're welding. We're taking a class. We need to come away with something meaningful. We made something.
yeah, and it's plate steel. Used a plasma cutter to cut the lines in it. Welded the base. Sanded the surface. I would pick it up and bring it a little closer. We did that last week, but since the wires and the lights and everything now are all connected, that would
It's
be a little
it's
hard.
it's delicate.
It's delicate.
It's
Yeah.
very, very delicate. Yeah, it's
And
I
it's
spent 3 hours on that thing yesterday and had to drive an hour each way just to get to where I was going. So I guess that's 5 hours on that yesterday, technically. But yeah, it's good to walk away from something having something to show for it when you take a class.
I am going to show y'all here,
Hmm.
since the question has come up, video from Israel. Um, and what you'll see are some of these little white dots in the sky. Those, if they're heading this way to the top of the screen, are drones. You'll
I'm trying
see
to push.
other ones. You'll
I'm
see
trying to
other
push.
ones heading
I'm
in
trying.
the opposite direction. Ellen, hold on just a second.
Sorry. All right.
You'll see others heading in the other direction, which I assume are interceptors, either Iron Dome or jets moving to intercept them.
וואו, 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 וואו. ממעלה אדומים, יש ממעלה אדומים.
But we can't get a live feed.
וואו,
Yeah,
וואו, וואו,
there's
וואו.
this. I mean, this
ממעלה
was
אדומים,
as
יש
of a
ממעלה
minute
אדומים.
ago. And I might have the directions backwards, but you can definitely see two different streams. There's a bunch of them going in both directions. So that is kind of the most current thing we've got. Whoops. Kind of the most current information we've got on what's going on in Israel. Also, there are reports of an attack on U.S. forces at Erbil International Airport in Iraq, as well as Al Assad Air Base in Western Iraq. So, two different U.S. bases in Iraq have come under attack. There's also video of interceptions over the Jordanian capital of Amman. Don't know who intercepted it, whether it's Israeli planes, whether it's Jordanian air defense. They have said they will try to shoot down any missile that's flying over their country. So this is starting to involve a lot of countries.
Yeah,
Does
it
it
is.
end tonight? I don't know. Some people are talking about World War III. I'm not certain at all that that's going to happen. Whether it'll be a significant regional engagement, I just don't know. As pretty much as I do. Now, some people are talking about Russia coming in on the side of Iran, attacking Israel or whatever. I really have very, very little fear that will happen, because Russia doesn't have good extended offensive capabilities outside of its border. You've seen it struggle some in the Ukraine. Its army is really not designed for offensive actions, particularly extended offensive actions. It's really designed for defensive actions, to defend against NATO, what it perceived as a threat from NATO. NATO is what it really fears. So, yeah, I think that's just fear mongering. I don't think Russia's going to enter this unless severely provoked. So it's pretty much Israel v. Iran, with U.S. forces coming under attack. I don't know how involved we'll get. I just don't know. But this is definitely another war, another conflict going on, and it certainly extends the Israeli-Palestinian issue.
Yeah. This is I don't know if y'all wanna see this or not. It's, live from the Western Wall. Um, hang on. Hang on. There's a lot of people watching this right now. Well, shoot. Can y'all see that? That's, I guess, today.
Yeah, I
Guess
imagine
that's not gonna work.
since it's nighttime and since the attacks are
Yeah.
on, most people have probably moved to the bomb shelters. I doubt there'd be a whole lot of
Yeah, I was just trying to find some live, um, camera. You can take me off.
oh, that's all right. Um, I can't take you off. You have to do it.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, I was just look
Brentwood.
hello, Brentwood. How you doing? It's been a little while. It's good to have you back.
Yes, it is.
Um, so I was just trying to look through. Don't see anything terribly new right now. Jordanian fighter jets are continuing to shoot down some of the drones. Iranian ballistic missiles can be seen flying over Iraqi capital of Baghdad. So there's still, and that was 56 seconds ago. So there's still a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find something, and it is not easy,
Yeah. So
unfortunately.
hope all of y'all are doing well. Um, just a couple little things. Obviously, once again, thanks to E Train for the Big M. I think it's pretty damn cool. It was a labor of love and is greatly appreciated. Do want to remind you Tuesday night, Raptor Red, the book club. We will post a Zoom link um, that morning on the community page. Look forward to you joining us. If you haven't read it, still feel free to join us. We'd love to have your fellowship, but it is it's a book that has aroused great enthusiasm from some of our viewers. So it is recommended extremely highly. So we'll look forward to seeing you there.
And I don't mean to be rude. I'm trying to keep a little bit of an eye on things going on.
Yeah, I think probably, not going to lie, all of us are.
Mhm.
This is not just, this is history in the making. How long has it been since you've seen a nation have an all-out attack on another nation, Israel? So,
Oh god, they just said that Trump was a warmonger. Yes, very excited, Melissa, about the dinos. Um, the US jets are operating off Navy vessels, which are in the area, to shoot down some of the rockets or missiles.
yeah, and some of the United Kingdoms are as well. So, war. What's the impact of war? One, it involves a country that has significant control over a major passage for oil to get to the West, the Hormuz Straits. Now, most of the markets are closed, so we can't really get a good gauge on what the reaction of the markets would be. I can tell you it'll be pretty damn negative. But looking at Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin dropped 10% in 30 minutes after that
You all right
first
there?
drone was launched. Yeah. Um, there are some programs that try to estimate the impact based on futures or whatever. And right now, the opening would if the market were to open, indications are it would open at about 400 or 500 points down. Also, what you're likely to see is called a flight to safety. This is where people swap equities, stocks, for short-term treasuries, T-bills. This flight to safety will also mean that there are collateral shortages. Because a lot of people would buy, for example, stocks or bonds on margin. Well, stock prices are dropping. They're getting margin calls for additional cash. They've got to find additional cash. So everybody's going to be grabbing for whatever cash they can find. To put it modestly, there's not enough cash or liquidity floating around that's available for a big move like that. So what you would see is the Federal Reserve responding with additional liquidity, which means printing money. So
Which
printing
means
money while inflation is rising. Yeah. So when I or somebody else talks about liquidity, think of it as printing money. We need more cash. Also, you're going to see a lot more volatility in the market, and you'll see credit spreads widen. That's normally not a good indicator for the market. So,
okay, Clay, I think I've got this right. Um,
yes.
so
There
we
you
have
go.
got X, we have got Gmail, we have got Manect. Clay is now a Manect.
Still working to get approved with Stripe on that. So I don't know that it's completely clear and approved.
But
Stripe is being a little bit of a pain.
what is Stripe about? Is that the payment method?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what? That's weird.
Yeah. So it's all new to me. I don't know.
So if y'all want personalized answers to questions, I agree with that.
It said
Jane.
this would never happen if he was president. I mean, for all of Trump's faults, he was the first president. I mean, Reagan had Grenada and fighting the communist Nicaragua. Bush had Iran won. Clinton had, oh geez, what did he have? He had a couple of skirmishes. Oh,
Monica
Bosnia,
Lewinsky. Oh.
Serbia. Yeah, that war too. Of course, Bush too. Obama, Biden. Trump is the first president in I don't know how many years or decades where a war was not started or the US involved in a conflict. When he got in, demolished ISIS first, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, and after that, it was relatively peaceful. Putin didn't move anywhere. China didn't saber rattle. North Korea quit firing missiles over Japan, South Korea. We had relative peace. And I saw a couple people comment today and these are noted liberals saying if Biden gets us in a war, they're just going to vote for Trump. They don't care.
Really?
So, yeah. It's some of the
We
reactions have
can't
been very interesting.
we can't do World War III. Like we don't all of our uh fuel reserves are gone, oil reserves. We've been
Yeah.
sending all of our ammunition to other what are we gonna do, really?
We're short on a lot of munitions and food stocks. Melissa,
Butter
butter
rations.
rations. Yeah. We just made some more butter. So we're
Hopefully it's
good for a
better,
few
but
months.
Clay forgot to put the salt in it. I like
Unsalted
salty
butter, you
butter.
can remedy that pretty quick.
It's difficult. Oh, stop
Carson.
messing with the chats, Clay.
Chop chop one. Did you say Bitcoin went on sale some more? Be right back. It's probably not a bad time. Already
Already
back
back
up
up.
4%. It's amazing with the volatility that Bitcoin has had for ever since its inception. It's really amazing some of the resiliency it's showing now,
Mhm.
due to larger cash inflows. And I just saw the other day where China had remember, China's tried to outlaw it 2 or 3 times. I forget exactly, but China's tried to outlaw it before. They just approved an ETF for sale in China of Bitcoin. That'll bring in, I don't know how many additional billions a month in Chinese cash. Chinese are hungry for Bitcoin, always have been.
Who knows if it's gonna do anything or not, whatever their new
If there are additional billions of dollars flowing into it, it'll do something.
do you think the government really is gonna use that wisely?
What government?
Chinese. I thought you said the
China
Chinese government.
approved an ETF, like a mutual fund.
Okay.
So Chinese people can invest in this ETF or mutual fund. So they can buy Bitcoin now. The
Okay.
Chinese government practically approved the purchase of Bitcoin. So there's a fair amount of money in China, and now they can legally start buying Bitcoin.
Gotcha. Jane, we're gonna get to that shortly, very shortly, because the March numbers came out and it ain't good.
Yeah.
Carson, butter ration starts looking for a milk cow. Well, if you want chocolate milk, according to the no offense, any of you Gen Zers, but you better get a chocolate cow.
I forget where we saw that. It was several years ago.
Oh, I saw it recently.
Did you? Some kid was
Yeah.
asked, where did chocolate milk from? She said a chocolate cow.
I
And
heard
she was being
40% of Gen Zers think that, believe that.
these are the days. I mean, it's, sometimes do you just laugh or do you cry? I honestly don't know.
Well, it's like I was talking to you yesterday. Oh, my alarm's gone off. Um, about these kids, they can't read and write. They can't do simple math. And who's going to teach their kids if they don't have the knowledge? I'm really concerned about the idiocy that we're creating in this country. It is insane.
Yeah.
Chocolate cows. Yeah. Okay. Back to inflation, March numbers.
I'm sitting here watching some new video of some of the drones over Israel. Do y'all want to see
You're
that?
not gonna you're not gonna share it with us? You're just gonna sit there and watch it? Really?
Well, that's no. This is over Jerusalem. And these bright flashes are the rockets being intercepted in the air.
That looks like Iron Dome interceptors.
Yeah, that would be my guess. You're still going to have missile parts or whatever falling on the city or over whatever area it was intercepted. But that's preferable to the actual warhead being detonated.
Yeah. Ugh.
So interesting. They are over Jerusalem. They're over Tel Aviv. Haven't heard of any actual strikes or hits or damage yet. So as soon as I hear or see something, I'll let you know. All right. The topic for the night is a stupid market. We've seen fluctuations in the stock market. We've seen the fluctuations the stock market has enjoyed, I guess I could say, over the past month. Well, followers of the show know that I have been, let's say, very cautious on the market as of 3 months ago.
Or as of 3 years ago, to be honest.
Yeah, I got into it a little bit last fall. and then pulled out around, the end of December, January, somewhere around there. And so I've been, pretty much in cash since then. And again, I'm not offering anybody investment advice. I just tell you what I do to try to and my thoughts as to why I do it.
And
When
based on your years of experience, which
I would say my
take it or
years of
leave it.
having my face being kicked in. But I've been cautious, basically because of the indications that I saw of inflation reigniting, starting back up again, and seen that over the past 5 months, and it's just gotten stronger month to month. So understand my thoughts on the market aren't shaped by what I see as its concern over changing consumer habits, over new innovation, over the future of the economy, or over cash flows, earnings. I don't think the market really cares about any of that. It
Or
is simply,
or what the White House says.
yeah, who cares what the White House says? Iran obviously doesn't. Anyway, it's my perception of the market, and I'm pretty much convinced of this, is that its view is simply shaped by its hope for more free money from the Federal Reserve. It literally hangs on every word spoken by a Fed representative, one of the Fed officials, offering insight as to what the governors may do. As long as the Fed was going to ease, everybody thought that the Fed was going to ease maybe 3 or 4 times this year. The market was pumped. The market went up, had a strong, first 3 months of the year. Once it started looking like the Fed may delay, the market kind of stalled in March. Didn't move a whole lot. Once it started looking like the Fed may hike again, once the inflation numbers kept coming out too high, too high, too high, looked like maybe there's a chance now that the Fed may hike even further.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, the market fell. So the Fed is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Whether you think there are other things going on in the economy of the world, so far have been pretty much irrelevant. Now the war obviously is going to take center stage for at least a day or two, maybe longer. But everybody's still looking at the Fed. And so if the market, drops over the next couple days and the Fed says, hey, actually the Fed probably won't make an announcement. What you probably should do is just keep an eye on the reverse repos and see if that starts rising again, where the Fed provides short-term money, but a bunch of it.
How can we afford that right now? I mean, how does that
The
math even math?
the perception of the Fed is that we can't afford not to, because having the economy, the markets collapse.
Well, it's gonna
And so
collapse
what
eventually if they do.
Yeah, I believe that. But that belief is not shared by a number of the governors and let's just say more recent appointees to the Board of Governors. There are some on the Board of Governors that think the government can spend and borrow an unlimited amount without consequence. It's a school of economic theory referred to as modern monetary theory, MMT.
Are they 4-year-olds?
Well, I ask them for an example in history when governments have been able to print an unlimited amount of money and not have consequences. They haven't been able to point to one, but they say basically that we know more, we do it better, this is a different world, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of old school. I think history tends to repeat itself. I think past is prologue, oftentimes, particularly in economic cycles, influences, environments. They don't share my views. Many of them don't share my views.
People and behaviors rarely change, especially historically. I mean, if individually, maybe. Okay, if you want to, but the trends typically do not.
Yeah, I believe in cycles. If you haven't read the book, I don't have it nearby, but it's called The Fourth Wave. And it talks about repeating cycles in human nature, human existence. They're basically 4 different cycles according to the authors, and a new cycle begins about every 20-25 years. And they document it through history. The book is not short. It won't be a book club book because it's like it was written by, Solzhenitsyn or Ayn Rand.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, it's 600, 800 pages. It's a hell of a read. It's interesting. It's highly informative, but it's not going to be a book club book.
Is it like a Jordan Peterson kind of book where you have to listen to him 5 or 6 times because the
You can get lost in the details.
verbiage is so complex at times that you're
It's
you're
not so
thinking too much
complex.
about it?
Yeah, it's just it is something that you have to think about generally and follow as you read. It helps to make notes, write down on a separate piece of paper some of the points, because once the book gets going, they just talk about it like everybody now knows what they're talking about. And you're trying to remember which pattern or which cycle was that.
Right.
But it is an interesting book.
Carson,
So
we hope your Wi-Fi behaves as well.
we're hoping
Once
you
you get to
behave
the
as well.
once you get to the back of Costco, though, man, it's hit or miss.
Yeah. I just went to Costco yesterday, so
How was your Wi-Fi?
I can't do Wi-Fi in Costco. Moving the cart, not running over, other folks in the aisles.
Small children.
Yeah, trying to figure out where everything I need is. It requires almost my full attention. Carson, you have fans on this show. Just always keep that in mind.
Melissa, we need you here for the debauchery. I hope you heard that.
If not, he'll definitely see it or hear it. I imagine several times.
Of course.
So, back to the market, looking at, the results after the movement in the market over the past, few weeks. The bond market, which again, if you followed the show, I pay more attention to it. I think it's a more informed, sophisticated market. But the bond market right now is looking toxic. The Treasury just had a very weak 20-year auction at the end of March, and a crappy 10-year auction this week. Foreign participation in these auctions has dropped significantly. Yields on the 10-year soared 10%, 10 basis points, which is a pretty large move in the bond market. Indirects, little mom pa purchases were down. Even mom pa don't want the 10-year. Dealers had to take almost a 50% bigger take than what they did the last auction. That gets expensive for the dealers. That's a pretty poor Treasury auction. So, looking at the last few auctions, what you've got with the U.S. government securities is a declining ability to sell debt.
Can I make this simpler? I think what you're saying is the American people, whose a lot of their taxpayer dollars are going to fund illegal immigrants who have not been vetted into this country and paying for their housing and paying for their food and paying for all of their living expenses and funding 2 wars. One we may believe in, one we may not. We don't need to be in either right now because we can't afford it. And we're also spending our taxpayer dollars in this brand new budget we just got for 2024 that is going to pay for full term abortions, as in 9-month-old babies. No, We don't want to buy your debt that we're paying for, and no one else does either. Is that better?
Wasn't exactly what I was saying, but we'll go with it. I mean,
Thank you.
there's probably some truth to it, but the main thing, I think the main point is one, people have been having to spend their savings, which I think really was kind of a point you were making, so they don't have as much to invest. Secondly, the yields, the real point is that the yields on the treasuries aren't high enough to attract investors, be they domestic or foreign. So remember, we're issuing about 1 trillion in new debt every 100 days. And that number is just going up. But 1 trillion in new debt every 100 days. So if we're going to be pushing this volume, this kind of volume out, you've got to attract investors. Well, they're looking at treasuries like it's a puke pill.
It is.
So how does the government attract investors to buy its debt? It has to raise the rates even higher.
Still, we don't want to buy it. We can barely
Well,
put food on our
it's going to
tables.
have to keep raising the rates until it can attract buyers. So, we talk about the increase in the interest expense for the government. That's only going to balloon. I saw a video by recording, and I don't know the exact date, but it was Druckenmiller, a guy I just admire the hell out of, sharp guy. And he was talking about how the interest expense would swamp medical expense and Social Security by 2040, 2045.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it'll happen in a few years, 2 years, 5 years, particularly at this rate. So, what should you expect? Well, interest expense is going to soar. Social Security system will run out of money in 2030, 2031, 2032. And keep in mind, we're having much higher drains on Social Security now with the illegal immigrants coming in the country. You'll hear a lot of people say that illegal immigrants can't get Social Security. But that's not entirely true. They can if they apply for and are granted asylum. They qualify for receiving the maximum Social Security benefit at that point for 7 years. Plus, they get SNAP, which is food stamps. They get Medicaid and several other allowances and benefits if they're granted asylum. So you've got the NGOs in Central America who are recruiting these people to go north across the border and training them how to request asylum, how to word it properly.
And how to play the system.
Yeah, well, that's what requesting asylum does.
I understand that. Sometimes I put things in different words. You ain't got to be mean to me.
I'm not being mean.
Also,
I'm
I was listening to Mike Johnson and Donald Trump today. God, this was just anytime you get a driver's license, okay, these immigrants are being asked to go and get on welfare programs and get their driver's license because guess what? You're automatically registered to vote if you check the box saying you're a U.S. citizen. You get on the voter roll, and that's it. Have fun.
Yeah, I also saw a video. Was it Daily Wire? I'm not sure, but their reporter was in D.C. and pointing out all these mopeds, small motorcycles with no license plate, and they were all owned and driven by immigrants. He would stop and talk to them. Was very fluent in Spanish and translating everything there on print, and he would ask them, and they would say they don't need a license. So they're being given mopeds as well and allowed to drive wherever. They're told just don't run the stop sign or the red light. And that's it. How cool is that? Don't know who's buying it, who's paying for them, but that'll probably come out in the in the news before long.
Yeah, but I mean, you go apply for SNAP, you go apply for an ID, just an ID. You say you're a citizen, and boom, you get to vote. Yay.
Now, kind of back to the markets, talking about the markets only care about the Federal Reserve. What's the Federal Reserve doing? Having trouble, placing the debt. And I said the market doesn't care about the economy or earnings or cash flows, whatever, just the prospect of more free money. So, what do I base that on? Well, look at this picture. This is a map of the S&P 500. And what you see is there are different sectors like software, consumer electronics, semiconductors, drug manufacturers. So you have all these different sectors. And this is a picture from Friday when the market dropped. Well, here you'll notice the energy sector, oil and gasoline, all of those companies were red. All of them dropped. The stock prices dropped. And here's the
Clay,
beautiful thing.
I put this comment up on purpose right now.
Okay. Kirkland motor oil isn't on sale yet. Well, just wait. Probably won't be at this rate, actually.
It's probably on sale now. You just don't know it.
The energy sector is down. Energy sector is down. Oil company price. Here's the beautiful thing. Oil company prices dropped because the market is dropping, because oil prices are surging. Think about it. Oil prices are going up. So what do you think would happen to oil company revenues and profits? They would go up. So if oil prices are surging, oil company stocks ought to be going up. But in this goofy ass market, they dropped. Everything is dropping. And I look at this and I go, wait a minute, what? It's just a stupid market. In the past, we've talked about other things. How's business doing in general? We've talked about the hokum of the jobs report. You had over the past year 1.9 million full-time jobs being lost. We just had 6,000 full-time jobs lost in March after losing 187,000 in February. Part-time jobs, however, rose 51,000 in February and 691,000 in March. We lost 6,000 full-time jobs. We gained nearly 700,000 part-time jobs. But if you look at the job-creating energy, the job-creating engine of the economy, that's small business. So if you look at small businesses, this is their index of small business optimism. And you can see this month's survey was the lowest in 11 years. It goes back to the subprime crisis level optimism.
Yeah, that 0809 is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was really in 10, 11, 12, 13 when the economy was really struggling and all. And this goes back to 2012. Not only that, and this is probably more important for the overall economy, what are they planning to hire? You've got two measures here, the light blue, can I call it a Carolina blue?
Yes, you can. The other one's Duke Blue.
is we just lost some people with the Duke Blue. The Carolina Blue one is known as the quit rate, which when the economy is doing exceedingly well and people can get jobs easy, they're more likely to quit and move to a company with better opportunity, higher salary, whatever. Well, you notice the quit rate has been declining for two years. Not a good sign. In addition, small businesses, the darker blue color is how many what percentage are planning on increasing employment, which it has
Not good.
gone from it's gone from 35% down to about 7 again over the past 2 years. This is
Okay, I
the engine of the economy. Go ahead.
oh, okay, graphs with 3 sides always trip me up.
Okay, this is years.
Yeah, I know that.
This is the growth rate. This is the dark blue metric. This is the light blue metric.
Okay, so there is a side for each.
Yeah, RHS,
Gotcha.
right-hand side is the quit rate.
See, this is not just common knowledge, Clay. You gotta put this stuff out there. Like the other graph, I was like,
I put it
I
out there,
thought
but I always take questions if something doesn't make sense.
I thought the years were on the bottom of the other graph, but apparently that was not true.
Years are always on the bottom of the graph usually.
Well, that's what okay, never mind. Apparently I'm just stupid because I
Right
said
there,
it was
years,
in 0708 was or
years.
09, 0809, which is where the bottom of the graph is.
Here's 08, 9,
Thank you.
10,
And you
11,
said it was
12.
more like 10 to 12, and I'm like, that doesn't
See,
make
this
any
right
sense to
here
me.
is at 12. See this little red arrow?
Yes. I said, but it was low at never
That's
mind.
12. It goes back to 12, the lowest point. What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Yeah, I
We'll
know. We
work on it.
do. Clay's been a little cranky. He's tired.
I'm the only one that ever happens to, by the way. Now, we mentioned gold and bonds as well. Gold and bonds. There is, I don't know how to word this. There is some people think that gold prices and bond yields are correlated. And I took this off a, a well-known website that's trying to, indicate that. But the devil's kind of in the details. You have seen gold prices rise. You have seen um, bond prices decrease. Here's another view. You've seen gold prices rise 19% while bonds have decreased 9%. But the key is that the real correlation here's the long-term view of gold prices and bond yields. And you can tell what they're showing is just this part right here.
Because they're kind of similar up until whatever that point is there, right? Where
Well,
they
there's a lot of
cross.
time. Yeah, there's a lot of time where the equity, the bond price, which is the blue, TLT, is an ETF of 10-year treasury bonds.
Can you
Very
make that
popular ETF.
full screen? Because that's very hard to say.
Is that better?
Thank you. Yeah.
So, here they're both going up, but here the bonds go down, gold price rises. Here, bond prices rise, gold prices drop. Here, bond prices rise, gold prices drop. So you've got a lot of areas where there's not correlation. It's not highly correlated, bond yields and gold prices. What is correlated is the real rate. And the real rate is simply the treasury yield, like on the 10-year treasuries, minus the rate of inflation. That net is called the real rate. And if you look at that real rate and the price of gold, the spot gold price as it's referred to, you can tell there is pretty high correlation. In fact, a study by Erb and Harvey. In fact, if you want to see it, it is free and available. The Gold Dilemma, Financial Analyst Journal by Erb and Harvey. It shows that they are correlated. And this is where it gets interesting. This is about a 87, 90% correlation. But if you look at it recently, there has been a huge divergence, which is anytime you see something with a strong correlation and a huge divergence, you know something's weird in the world. This doesn't tell you what's weird in the world, but it's a place to start asking questions and go,
Isn't that
what's going on?
isn't that what I just said? They were pretty much the same until that one point at the end?
Well, we weren't looking at this particular information. We
Well,
were looking at this information. And I said, this is what that prior graph showed, this
yeah,
part.
but I
It
hadn't
didn't
seen
show
that.
this part. So, if you just looking at this part, you get a different story than if you look at the whole part. That's what I was pointing out.
Mm.
Now, what does this mean? Well, historically, when yields drop, gold prices go up. Yeah, one other thing you're going to love about this graph is the gold. Here's 0, here's 2,500. So you see gold prices on this axis. On the blue, here's the axis, the range for the blue, but it's inverted. It's upside down. So here is 0. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is -2. This is -3. So you take this curve and flip it upside down.
That's a mind fuck is what that is.
Yeah, but it allows you to see visually the correlation, how closely their movements are tied together. And through all of this, you can tell they're pretty closely aligned. They move pretty much in sync when you overlay one on the other. So visually, it lets you see the correlation.
But from a layperson's perspective,
That's not a native intuition. You wouldn't look at that data and think to flip it.
no, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that some other economists that we know might do, but
Well, it's kind of one when you're trying to compare and you see a high correlation between two data, but they look like they're going in different directions. A lot of times you will flip it so you can see them move
you wouldn't know. I mean, unless you
together.
knew about these particular graphs and how they work, that one's positive up and one's positive down, you wouldn't know.
Well, but after you see it once, you got it for the rest of your life. It's like riding a bicycle. You've got
Well,
these two different x axes,
yeah,
one in gold, one in blue.
I get it. I'm just saying that most people wouldn't.
You wouldn't know that at first, but now you know.
Not until you watch your podcast and see your beautiful M in the background.
That beautiful M.
That beautiful M is actually really bright green, like as bright as the background green. But we got to figure out how to do that.
It's weird because
The camera doesn't do.
I'm gonna blow
Mhm.
mine up for a second. Um, I don't have, let's see, hold on a second here. Here's the M, the color that you'll see on YouTube. And if you look at this color versus this color, it looks a shade or several shades off, but it's actually very, very, very close. It's almost perfectly this color. I don't know why on camera it doesn't show up as well,
So our
but
movie people let us know why that happens, Melissa. Okay. Wait, hang on. We got
we got lost in Costco, I think.
okay. What kind of do?
So while Ellen's
Okay.
trying to figure that out, here on this curve, what does it mean? Um,
Okay. I think y'all are just
well,
talking to each other, but okay.
right.
But there is an email sent to you by Carson with a
Okay.
picture. So
All right.
if you'll check that out,
I'm going to get to this first, if you'll let
that's
me. All right.
be
There,
sweet.
there is a rather strong correlation between these two, and it kind of shows that inflation is gold's best friend, while rate hikes are its worst enemy. So, think of this as when you see yields increase on bonds, it's because of inflation. And the higher yields are killing inflation. So gold becomes less attractive because it doesn't pay a dividend or a yield. Thus, it's relatively poor performing when inflation cools. Yields rise and the economy stabilizes. Nobody wants gold during those times. It's when things are troubled, hectic, inflation is running high that people want gold. And that's normally when yields, have dropped or dropping. So holding a bond with a negative interest rate. Now, what we talked about negative interest rates before. What's a negative interest rate? Ellen, do you know?
I don't know anything about anything.
Well, we've talked about negative interest rates before. And a negative interest rate is when you have the yield of the bond, the market rate, subtract inflation rate, and you get a negative number. Normally, you lend money and you receive interest. A negative interest rate is where you lend money and you actually pay interest. You pay somebody to borrow your money. That's a negative interest rate. So when bonds have a negative rate after inflation, well, that's value destroying. So in those times, gold becomes immensely more attractive. So, when do people want gold? When inflation is starting up, when times become more chaotic, when the yields on treasury bonds are negative, the real rates are negative. So does that make sense? Anybody have any
Mhm.
questions? What is chai chais?
Chi-Chi's.
What's chi-chis?
It's a Mexican restaurant. It used to be very popular, very famous.
Don't remember it.
You're in Alabama. They probably didn't have them there.
Ask me about Taco Bell.
Taco Hell.
Now, whoops. Let's talk about another common myth or myth that I've seen kind of widespread on the internets, and that is that the rich get richer. Um, the Federal Reserve released some data this week, and it shows that the article is it shows the top 1% of Americans are the richest they've ever been. The end of the fourth quarter, they had a record 44.6 trillion in wealth. That's up 30 trillion from 2020. Even there were some conservative people who picked up this same point. Here's one by St. Owens, the rich get richer thanks to the Fed. And interestingly, he's putting up charts that end in 2016. And I'm like, what the hell does a chart that ends in 2016 have to do with Fed data in 2024? Didn't really know. Now, I like Anj. He does some good work. But this made me curious looking at the data. So I found the release, and here it is. It's not any big secret. I say it's not. There it is. And it doesn't look like much, but this is 2008, the end of 2008. This is the end of
full
2020.
full screen, please?
That is.
Can you zoom in a little bit? He doesn't like it when I say that. He's like, dag nabbit.
No, it's sometimes it doesn't work too good. See? That's about as big as I can get it.
Okay, better.
So here's the chart. And as you drag your cursor across it, it will show you for each period the percentage of wealth by each group. Now you can do percentage or you can do the dollar amounts. So when I go over here and look at the end of the fourth quarter, you can see the top 1% have a combined of the top line is 0.1%. The line after it is 99 to 99.9%. So if I add those two together, I get the top 1%, right? So if you add those together, that's where people are getting the $44 trillion in wealth. And it sounds like, according to this data, that the wealthy are the only ones that have benefited. So I took each one of these categories and ran the calculation. Like some of the commentators will use the change from 2020 through 2023. Some of them will go back to 2008 through 2023. So I ran those numbers. Took a minute, ran those numbers. So looking at the percentage change, increase in wealth, the top 0.1%. In 2008, they held 10.7%. In 2023, they held 13.6. So they gained about 3% of the total wealth. Top 1%. In 2008, they had 17%. In 2023, 16.7%. So the top 1% lost wealth as a percentage of total available wealth. What I call the middle class, the 50% through 90, in 2008, they had 32.4. 2023, they had 30.6. So they dropped about 1.8%. The interesting is the bottom 1%. I'm sorry, the bottom 50%. In 2008, they had 1% of total wealth. In 2023, they had increased to 2.5%. 2.5%. So since 2008, the top 0.1% had increased 27%. That's pretty strong. But it's a fifth of what the bottom 50% did. They're up 150%. The top 1% lost a small fraction of a percent. The middle class lost about 5%. I'm sorry, half a percent. Half a percent. Since 2020, the change is still interesting. The top 0.1% over the last 4 years gained 16% of all wealth. Top 1% lost 0.04%. The middle class, 50 to 90%, gained 0.3%. And the bottom 50% gained 31%. Top 0.1 gained 16. Bottom 50 gained 31. So if you see those articles about the rich got richer, they do have some truth to them, but they don't tell you the whole story either. My point is, and it's not just a quibble on trivial data. Obviously, this isn't going to really impact anybody's life greatly. But my point is that anyone can see what they want to see. So you can't simply rely on the bottom line or on sound bites. We do that so often in this society, in this culture, in this time, in this era, when it is more essential than ever to understand the reality of the situation. Now, honestly, I believe since the 2008 subprime crisis that the elites have benefited greatly, even grotesquely. But the point is that the data these people are citing, this particular data, doesn't prove that. A gross change, calling it an all-time high, to me is more indicative of propaganda than it is expressing any interest. If you want to understand economics, economic complexity, theory, whatever, just personalize it. You know, every year, for example, every year, do you want your income to be a record, an all-time high? Well, yes, you do. Does that mean you cheated someone else out of what is rightfully there? Does that mean you did something illegal or immoral? No, absolutely not. But it's easy to present when you say the top 1% gained 44 trillion. Sure, they gained, but how did everybody else do? Secondly, and I need to make this perfectly clear, anyone can make mistakes. Now, there are some people out there like Paul Krugman, Peter Schiff, Kramer, who are consistently good at it. Anyone can. So I want you to stay a little cautious. Keep one foot in Missouri. Don't believe everything you read, hear, or see, particularly if it's a soundbite. With the internet, we're inundated. We are
Inundated.
inundated. I
And
can't
yet
without it.
inundated.
See, it's not that easy.
Yes, it is.
Not when you're trying to say it. With data and info, too much of it. We have access to too much info, and we don't dig deep enough into it. The massive data, the massive information can, actually blur our vision or dull our senses, dull us to reality, or even worse, consider it reality and ignore the actual implications. So my encouragement is just simply learn to dig. If something strikes you as important, or something you want to base a strong opinion on, dig, look into it, understand those things that will impact your decisions, the decisions you make, your money, your future. So, you know, I am, just as prone as anybody else to make mistakes. I will say, let me reword that. Those who talk more are more prone to make mistakes, to say something in error. I mean, it's like the president. Every word the president says is recorded and parsed and examined. So, yeah, there are going to be times when you can take something out and make it extremely stupid. Um, Obama once mentioned that there were, what, 58 states? Does that really mean he doesn't know how many states are in the union? I don't think so. Just one of those verbal errors you make sometimes while you trying to think of something else and your mouth isn't keeping up with your mind. So take that for whatever it's worth. Carson taking orders at Costco, getting that chocolate cow. I'll get the jersey. Oh, Jersey cow. That's okay. That lost me a little bit. Now y'all will have to fight over who sponsors me. That probably will be quite a fight. Hello, Tallulah. She hasn't been petted in 15 or 20 minutes, so she needs a pet. Little bit of an attention hound. All right, well, shifting gears here a little bit, going to
Can we? There was something about the media you were going to say and what they were saying about the stock market.
mm, any other hints?
You had some footage about where it was energy, gas prices, oil going up.
Yeah, I already talked about that.
Okay.
Sorry. Um, Sitting here looking, trying to see if there's anything else going on with the war intercept. Have y'all seen anything? Any other news? Let's see. Israel's news reports a senior official has vowed an unprecedented response is coming to Iran's attack. That's interesting. Um, Israeli defense systems intercept Iranian missiles over the Temple Mount, which is a Muslim holy site. What would happen if one of the missile parts crashed on the Dome of the Rock and damaged it? That would be fascinating. Amazing times we're in. Melissa, I have not been looking. Yeah, I just took a quick peek to see if there was any other major news coming out. This might be something that's worth staying up a little bit tonight and trying to watch the news, or at least I might. Some of y'all might be like, I'll find it out in the morning. And this is pretty big because what's going to happen to the price of oil? The market's probably not going to react well. Oil is probably going to jump. So we've seen oil go up from, I would say, 70 to 92 somewhere around there over the past 2 months, spurred by cuts in production. You've also got Ukraine and Russia trying to bomb each other's oil producing facilities, your port facilities, etc. You've got OPEC cutting production. Well, good news is Biden decided that that's not enough. Yep, he's going to try to add incentives for prices to go higher. If you remember, oil prices started rising when literally the day he was elected. Oil was somewhere around 42. And then he took office. He canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He literally issued nearly 100 executive orders impacting oil production, all of them negative, limiting it, cutting off oil leases, delaying approvals, etc. Even put a halt on permits to actually drill. You can lease the land, but you're not permitted to drill without you can't drill without a permit. So companies might already have a lease, but he killed their application for permits. And then kicking off inflation by paying people, his stimulus plan, paying people not to work, not to produce. So you have more money, you have less production. Inflation. So, last 4 months, we've had rising inflation with the rather impressive showing of CPI. This past week, up an annualized rate nearly just slightly under 5%. Good to, let's see. So CPI came in actually at an annualized 3.5% for the past 12 months. If you took the rate for March and multiplied it to get an annualized rate, it would come out to 4.8%. And in that you saw, electricity was up 10%, medical was up 7, transportation was up 18, clothes were up 18, gas was up about 20%. So the things you buy and use, inflation is rocking on. Some of the things you don't buy as often, like used cars, were down. So the overall rate was a little bit lower, but the stuff you actually buy, a lot of it's in double digits. I think we talked about PPI the other night. The producer prices, the prices people pay for wholesale goods. It showed an increase of 0.2%, which you think is kind of low. But if you look into the numbers, it showed energy decreasing 4.6%. Decrease 4.6%, when it actually increased 7%, according to their raw data. So this was something called a seasonal adjustment. I could go on in some of this inputs, but with the data we get, it's hard to really tell you what the exact inflation rate is. If we were still calculating it the way we did in the 80s, it would be closer to 10 or 11%. So yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, Melissa, chances are good gas prices are going to go even higher. It's likely oil will hit, I would say 100, 110, which probably will bring about $4 gas prices here, which probably will be 5 or 6 in California. I don't know about the taxes in Arizona. So, um, we've talked a little bit about inflation and insurance costs for cars or homes, medical. These are turning into a little mini crisis. Cars, prices in cars have jumped the past few years. Their repair costs have continued to soar as, the technology gets more complicated, gets more extensive. Even small fender benders now can cost, a couple $1,000s to repair. EVs, even with a small or kind of a mid-level wreck, they're being written off completely. Car insurance, according to CPI, is up 22% this year alone so far. With homes, the average home is bigger, more expensive. Lumber prices are far higher. You've got more damage from weather events, floods, fires, hurricanes. You've got more and more people building in riskier areas like the coast, like up in the mountains where there is no, fire department, there's no fire breaks, the land management has poor practices. It's not clearing out, burning the underbrush. So people are moving in riskier areas. The good news is that homeowners insurance, for example, is not included in the CPI. If it was, according to Bloomberg, it would have added 80 basis points or 0.8% to last year's 3.4% inflation number, making it 4.2%. So it's always good to know that your costs are increasing in a number of areas that really aren't reflected in CPI, much less accurately reflected in CPI. And people complain about, the increasing cost of insurance. Well, insurance companies have been hurt by these increase in claims. Having a whole electronic EV totaled because, its battery cracked underneath, and the, expense to take it apart, repair it, replace the battery and all would be as expensive as, as the car is worth. They've also been hurt by their investments over the past decade. Insurance companies take a lot of their premiums and they invest it. They save it kind of for the proverbial rainy day. Well, what have they been able to invest in? Generally bonds. Well, bonds have been paying little or nothing for the past 15 years. So isn't it kind of interesting the long-term consequences of the Federal Reserve's low interest rate policies has had on individuals, how it impacts people down the road for years, for a decade. Talk about unintended consequences. Jane, I feel like when they raise the prices of gas, it's to control our movement around the country. Why? I keep thinking about the Great Reset. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. You won't need to leave your home. I don't think there's any real argument that it's a big guiding principle of a lot of people in power that they want you to use less energy. AKA, they want you to be a whole lot less mobile. They don't want you to have the flexibility to pick up and go or move wherever you want to, when you want to. So, how do they do that? Can they tell you not to move? No, that probably wouldn't go over too well. But what if they take action after action after action to try to limit the availability of energy behind the scenes, to try to increase the price of energy so that you're forced to use less? What if they take action behind the scenes to limit agricultural production, farming, cattle farming, so that the price of meat and chicken and pork keeps rising and rising, so that you can't afford it or afford nearly as much? Well, they've still achieved their objectives. You'll eat less meat, You won't have to leave your home. You'll own nothing and be happy. Even owning your home is becoming more and more of a challenge. And we see companies like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard coming up with these huge real estate trusts that are buying real estate, buying individual homes. Hell, they may buy a whole block if it's a new subdivision going up. So, the Great Reset's goal is for government and corporations to have that perfect unity, to be working in synergy with each other. You'll own nothing. You won't own your own home. You'll have to rent it from BlackRock, State Street, Fidelity, Vanguard, whoever. So your point isn't totally lost. I'm like, I can't find fault with it. Carson, what are the used car prices like where everyone is? They're stupid up here. They're still stupid up here, but they dropped 1.7% last month. So that kind of helped lower the inflation rate, the stated inflation rate. You'll eat the bugs and you'll like it. Yeah, I just saw somebody commenting they ate a cricket meatloaf and it was good. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, sorry. Leave me out. Jane, that's why rabbits are great. Carson, do you raise rabbits? Do you raise meat rabbits? Actually been considering that when I retire. Chickens, meat rabbits, whatever. Just looking into some of that. So be interested if you did, what your experience was, what your recommendation was. And Melissa, we love you, Melissa. Carson, I did, but not at the moment. And Melissa, from the rabbit companion person. Yeah, I understand. They are cute and soft and fluffy. And no, Melissa probably won't sponsor you, Carson. You probably might have blown that opportunity. But I'm sure there are others that will step in. So any of y'all have any questions? I've been, kind of talking and y'all have any questions or comments? Get some olive trees and we'll talk. Melissa, you may be talking to one of the only people that you know who doesn't like olives. Trying to grow an avocado tree. I'd be interested in mangoes, dates, figs, but have never really appreciated olives in any shape, manner, or form. I will use a little olive oil as long as I've got enough of something else to kill the taste. So it's yeah. Sorry about that. But Carson does. Carson has olive trees. You have olive trees up in Canada? I thought they were more tropical or subtropical plant. Didn't know they would survive fruit and produce in what I would call a relatively extreme environment. Oh, he just loves olives. He doesn't have olive trees. He just loves olives. Yeah, Jane, I'm kind of with you here. Are they indoor olive trees? You have your own little greenhouse? He'll catch up in a minute. Yeah, I kinda look forward actually to, being able to get a place and set up a garden. I miss not being able to get a little dirt on my hands, work with my hands. I miss not having the fresh fruits, vegetables, fruits. Gonna try to grow some, fruit trees, lemons, maybe plums, whatever. Um, I remember what I was in, Italy. Uh, oh geez, what's the region in northern Italy? The drawing a complete blank. Um, beautiful, agricultural area. Can't think of the name of it, but to the west of Florence, Tuscany. Damn, Tuscany. So I was traveling around Tuscany and was staying in a B and B up there, and went out one morning walking through their fields and came across this tree with mature plums and would just pick them literally off the tree and just bite into one. And it would just, kind of soak the front of your shirt. It was great. It was so much better, juicier than what they were in the store. I miss that. Carson grew a mango tree indoors when I was young. Did you get fruit though? You know, I've seen some of the mangroves in down in South. They take up a spread. I don't know how big they have to be to bear fruit, but, never tried to grow one. Did try to sprout a seed and failed. Need to try again. Don't know what I'll do with it if it, catches hold, but I'll do something. But, yeah, I love fresh mangoes. Trying to think, you know, mango tree topped out at about 4 feet, but no fruit. I like taking care of plants, but if it's fruit bearing and I can't get it to bear fruit, it's irritating. Now, speaking of irritating, we talked about taxes some, but I thought, hey, let's do something kind of fun tonight. So for all of you that can, take out your last pay stub for the month and look at the taxes you paid. You know, if you get paid weekly, take it out, multiply it by 4, whatever. But figure out the amount of taxes you paid for the month. Not just federal, not state, local, FICO, whatever, FICA, the amount of taxes, federal taxes you paid. Now take 55% of that and smile. Because that's how much you paid for interest on the national debt last month. That doesn't include a penny for defense, for roads, for hospitals, for education, for any of that. Just the interest. You guys are having to borrow to pay for all the rest of that stuff. Cool, huh? Carson, my blood pressure is high enough. Well, yeah. It's maybe it's not as fun as I had hoped. It actually is kind of frustrating. All right, y'all. Eh, Any other questions? Because that concludes it for me. I think Ellen is already headed to bed. Jane, sorry. Don't get me started on taxes tonight. Not only payroll taxes, but house taxes, food taxes, gas taxes, phone taxes on everything. You seriously can't do much of anything anymore without being taxed on it. There are even in some locales where you can't collect water, for example. Never really thought the government would be involved in saying whether or not you can collect rainwater. Um, Fascinating how much, how far we've come or how much things have changed over the past, 30, 40 years, even while I've just been alive. Vastly, vastly different world and country. Um, but that's all I've got for the night. It's, everything's kind of been overshadowed by the war. Again, we've got viewers all over the world, and, I've got actually friends in both countries. Not going to speak as to their particular views or anything, and not going to presume to speak for them, but I do hope they're safe, and I hate to see this happening. I think there's a better way for people to get along, but just not going to happen. You have to deal with the way things are, and this is the way things are. So, we just hope and pray. Want to thank you all. Appreciate y'all being with us tonight, and hope you all have a great rest of the weekend. If you've got any other questions or comments, drop me an email, Moffat on Money, DM me on Twitter. Be glad to hear it, good, bad, or indifferent. Do really appreciate y'all joining, watching the show. Appreciate all y'all on the replay crew. And y'all go have a great rest of the week. And we'll look forward to seeing you at Book Club Tuesday night, 7. Our time is up. We thank you for yours. Blessings to you.